It's Dave Lawrence at the Hawaii Theater in Honolulu, spending a few minutes with the legendary Yes vocalist and songwriter Jon Anderson, who, as he promised me he would, has made himself available. Thank you very much for taking a couple moments before your show, Jon, and welcome.
Thank you so much. Here I am backstage. A beautiful theater, too.
It looks gorgeous. I have yet to see a show here, so I'm excited to see you.
Got a big screen, because I just realized the poster, it says Acoustic Evening, and I play my MIDI guitar and piano, and we have a big screen of computer energy stuff. It's going to be a beautiful night.
So it's not going to be quite as acoustic necessarily as folks.
Not really.
And now I'm excited to get to talk to you because this is one of these off-air interviews and backstage at a venue where I get to go over some of the classic rock details that I think a lot of listeners to K-Poi would like to hear an answer to. And I'll do it through my own experiences. When I was a teenager and first really getting into Yes, it was the early 70s era of music that to me was very psychedelic. And in the way I heard the music, as maybe you would think of me as a Deadhead or part of that subculture, your music was incredibly psychedelic. Would you think of the records like Fragile and Close to the Edge in that way? How would you describe them?
Well, I don't know about psychedelic so much as we used to smoke a lot of marijuana when we made those records, you know, because we came out of the 60s. My first band, you know, we were right through that hippiedom. I was still a hippie with Yes, I still am, I think. So we were sort of in that world of the Beatles and Are You Experienced, Jimi Hendrix, and I don't know, it was like, when I think about the music we made, it was just very, in a strange way, very spontaneous that we actually made that music. And when I look back at it now, it is very interestingly different.
So, okay, well, that's it. And this is the thing I wanted to touch on with you, because there was a subculture in the late 80s of Grateful Dead fans, a huge subculture that was capable of propelling them to do multi-nights at every arena throughout the U.S., wherever they would go. And this group of young people, in a lot of cases, Yes was one of the groups that was a core of the psychedelic music listening experience. So people would look at songs like Heart of the Sunrise or Yours Is No Disgrace, South Side of the Sky, and think of those as incredibly psychedelic songs. So those songs, when they were being constructed, were people in Yes dropping acid as well as also smoking pot? Was acid a part of the ingredient list?
No, we were recovering from the 60s. We all took acid in the 60s. Except Rick. I don't think Rick or Bill Bruford did. But we, you know, as soon as Paul McCartney took acid, I did. Because if he can take it and write those kind of songs, I want to do the same thing, you know. So I think we were just in that space of being so blessed to have a little success at that time. And I think we were just, like I say, the music we were making, like Heart of the Sunrise, is just a ginormous piece of music still. Even on stage when we do it, last couple of years ago we were doing it, it's a ginormous piece of music and it's so exhilarating. What
is the city that you're referring to in that?
London. I was in London at the time, and you know, you get lost in the city. You know, it was like I just wanted to go and live in the farm again, because I came from living near a farm, you know. But I was in the city and I was, you know, going for keeping the band together, and it's a very hard time to trying to keep everything together. It was a very fragile period, and that's why we called the album Fragile, because it was a very difficult time, and London was the big city and people can just eat you up, you know.
And just when I hear that, you know, growing up outside of Philadelphia, to me, that was the city in the song. I mean, that's the magic of Yes songs, as I've been telling people on the air. You know, the Yes songs, they have a lot of meaning to people all over the world, and they have for years. There's so many different places people have been, and you sort of, you put yourself into the song, if you will. And so that's why references like that, I was curious about. And the same with Wondrous Stories. Who's Wondrous Stories?
Wondrous Stories came out of me just waking up one morning looking at my kids, and then thinking about well, you could call it your higher self. I was learning about that you have a higher self that talks to you. It's called your conscience or something like that, you know. And this person was talking to me about places in my dreams that were so beautiful, and reason was, you know, a very important word. You know, at that time, that there is a reason within everything that's going on. It seems like silly crazy chaos out there, but there is a reason for everything, you know. And then I started to really search for a more defined understanding of God at that time, and I was reading Herman Hesse books and things. So it all came around that period. So I woke up that morning, and love led me by the river, and I thanked the divine for giving me the eyes to see such a beautiful child as my daughter, you know, my son.
It's just cool to hear you recollect on them. And these were songs, and I pick out some of the songs that were seen as, I mean, these to me, as a young guy, I would think of them, they were the most psychedelic, and like South Side of the Sky. They seemed to me, when you were a young person, indulging in psychedelics, perhaps, and taking advantage of those things, as people do when they're adolescents or younger. To me, it seemed like those songs were like written for those experiences, and that's not really true then, in a way. Then I mean, and this is not a myth that you're the first to. I've met Steve Howe. I've eaten dinner with Bill Bruford. I know Bill Bruford's agent, so I've heard it before. But I just love exploring it with you, because you're really the most spiritual guy in the band, it seems. And so, what is your reaction to it?
I'm the most vocal about being spiritual. Everybody's the same spiritual energy. It's a question of whether you want to sing about it, talk about it, or be it, which most people tend to be afraid to be. And the idea is to let go of all the conditioning that you're growing up in. So when I always remember when I took acid, I think the third or fourth time, and I said to my friend, I don't think we're ever going to come down, are we? And he said, no. And every time I see him still, we say, hey, we're still there, right? And he said, yeah, I'm still in that sort of evolving space, you know? So I always believed that I was destined to discover the divine, and I was lucky enough to find this beautiful little lady here in Hawaii, in Honolulu, who was the divine, you know, divine presence. And I've been following her for now 20 years. So it's amazing how you bump into the right people at the right time, you know.
And you've made that a part of your life, and so it brings you back to our state. You would say you have a more of a connection with Hawaii than any other state. I mean, I know your main residence is in California, but other than California, would this be the state you have the most connection to?
Well, it's the heart chakra of the planet for me, and I have my awakenings here, with Nanaviri up in the Kaki Mountains in Kauai. Just going through an experience was amazing, and then meeting the lovely Divine Mother here, the wonderful little lady here, and the lady that's taken over the mantle is this wonderful woman called Audrey Kitagawa, who actually works at the UN. I spoke to her this morning. She's off to Nepal, and she was a lawyer here in Honolulu, and she's out there in the world spreading this beautiful energy that's so powerful. And we're all going to embrace it eventually. We're all embracing it in our own way, you know?
That's what I mean, John. You really are the most, I mean, you summed it up. Maybe everyone else in the band is as spiritual as you, but you're the guy who gets to say it, you know? When you talk, it comes out of you. Well,
I think we're all the same, spiritual. Like I've been taught, we're all exactly the same light within. Exactly the same. Every human being is the same light. And it's a question of each of us waking it up through our experience in this life or in the next life, whatever, you know. Also, I'll be singing about it tonight, so.
No, I know, and I appreciate it. I very much am grateful for your time. Please keep us in mind when you have future visits to our area. Look me up. I'd love to have you stop by the show. I'll make it real nice and have it catered for you and stuff, and it would be a pleasure to have you on the air with me some afternoon.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Hello, this is Jon Anderson of Yes, and you're listening to the only show that matters with my good friend Dave Lawrence.